we should move on and talk about the 2024 Golden Globe nominations, which dropped this morning. We're recording this on a Monday, of course, and we saw all of the big nominees that came out of the Golden Globes. Now, I will be honest, typically I wouldn't pay much attention to the Golden Globes just because for a long time there it was somewhat of a farce of an award show just based on the award body behind it, the HFPA, just
whatever they
filled with
are.
so much systematic issues that had to be addressed for the past few years. And I think they have tried to actively address some of those things and have tried to turn the corner about what the HFPA represents, what the Golden Globe represents. I think just the credibility behind this body, because for a long time, people just, the stars show up for the Golden Globes. Like the star power has always been there. It's always been a
Hmm.
fixture. It kicks off the award season at the top of the new year. But over the past few years, people started to like really ask the question, like, well, who is the HFPA? Like, who are these people? Who are these quote unquote journalists that just all of a sudden have power to vote on what the best movies of the year are? And then we heard about these press junkets that they would go on and these lavish trips that would get paid for, the fact that they pretty much had no members of color, no black members. I mean, it painted a picture that I think a lot of us could have already predicted, but it basically just shined a light on what the HFPA was, and it was an extremely flawed and broken system that needed to go away, and they needed a
Hmm.
complete restructuring, which is what they've tried to do for the past few years. They did not air an award ceremony, I believe, in 2021. They had one in 2020, but 2021 is kind of where shit hit the fan. They went away. They came back last year. I think last year was a pretty decent broadcast, actually. I thought it was a pretty fine show, better than I expected. And they will be returning this year, but this time they're going to be airing on not only CBS but streaming on Paramount Plus, which is kind of a new avenue for them. We don't see too many award shows on I guess the prestigious film scale really being streamed on
Yeah,
streaming
not live.
services,
Yeah,
not
not
live
live.
at least. They might get tape delay or something like that. But this is kind of a new avenue, which I think is really interesting. And the whole organization is also under new ownership. Dick Clark Productions now owns and produces and oversees the Golden Globe Awards, and so the HFPA kind of no longer exists, or at least exists in a new iteration. Basically, it's made up now of 300 journalists, all from radically different and diverse backgrounds. Apparently, we don't exactly know who these people are, but apparently they are coming from all over the world. They represent different diverse backgrounds, and so this is again an attempt to try to address the systematic problems that existed with the HFPA. But we got the nominees earlier today, and a few surprises here, a few snubs I think we could talk about, but also some things that I'm sure
Hmm.
we expected, and overall what this might mean for the rest of the award season, especially when the Oscars rolls
Yeah.
around later in the spring. But let's just start off with some high level stuff here. From both the movie and television side, Barbie and Succession led the overall nominations for this year's Golden Globe Awards. Barbie is walking away with 9 nominations. Succession, same story there, 9 nominations for this latest season. Second on the movie side is Oppenheimer with 8, followed by Killers of the Flower Moon and Poor Things with 7 nominations each. And then on the television side, The Bears coming in second with 5 nominations, followed by Only Murders in the Building with also 5 nominations. And then lastly, The Crown picked up 4. And really across the board, I think it's an interesting conversation that we can have about both the TV and film categories. Let's actually start off with TV. Don't want to dive too deep into these. There are a lot
Hmm.
of TV categories, but I do want to focus on like the bigger ones, of course. Best series, musical or comedy, and then of course drama. What are your thoughts just about the TV landscape? You can look at these categories, but also like any other highlights that stood out to you in terms of what we're seeing out of the big TV shows, whether it's Succession or The Last of Us or Abbott Elementary, of course, being acknowledged again here. How do you feel just about the landscape of where TV is with the Golden Globes?
Yeah, I think a lot of these were obvious, either obvious or mainstays, just things that we definitely expected, especially Abbott. I just can't see a world where Abbott ever falls. It's really such a good show, or even like anytime The Crown comes out, it's like, yeah, The Crown's probably going to be talked about at the Golden Globes. In Succession, man, the way we talk about that show on this podcast by itself, we already knew that it would be nominated coming into this. The things I am only slightly surprised about is after hearing about the decline in the decline in, I guess, how good the show was from Ted Lasso and the morning show. Like those are two specific shows that I know started off very strong, right? Everybody, morning show comes out, oh, the show's amazing. Ted Lasso comes out, oh, that show's amazing. I haven't heard anything about Ted Lasso or morning show that was positive with these last seasons, not necessarily not positive, but are not as high on those shows as they were before. So I am a little bit surprised to see those two in particular to be here. Those kind of catch me off guard, but other than that, man, I think everything else makes sense. The Bear, love it. Barry just finished it, maybe last week before. Absolutely love it. I'm not surprised. In the C, again, The Last of Us and Best Drama Series. I'm really, to be honest, that's like one of the things that makes me the happiest is to. It is proof that video game adaptations can work. Like that is literally like the one of the biggest wins to me out of whatever this whole award season will be is whatever The Last of Us does, because I think we're looking at a different future in a different landscape when it comes potentially to video game adaptations. But again, nothing too surprising for me, at least not on the television side this year around. Besides Ted Lasso and kind of the morning show.
Yeah, I mean to the Ted Lasso and Morning Show point. I mean, I watch both of those shows, and there was a decline for sure. But those are the most like watch shows as well. So I'm not surprised to see them
Mm-hmm.
here because people watch them still, for various reasons. I mean, Ted Lasso I get because Ted Lasso had two really strong seasons. Like it was only the third season that really just like it was a big what the fuck moment. Like, what are we doing here? Like, this is really the end of the show.
Mm-hmm.
The morning show, it's been bad since like the end of season one. So I think it's just due to the fact that people watch them. Like it's Jennifer Aniston and Reese Witherspoon. Like people are
That's
gonna watch
true.
them regardless. You know that those are huge names, and you know they want them at the show as well. So that they're gonna
Yeah.
figure out a way to work them
Marvelous
in
Mrs.
there.
Maisel snub in there.
Oh wow! So that didn't even wait. I
Marvelous
didn't
Mrs.
even notice that.
Maisel.
That's
When
interesting.
I say like snub, like the last season was maybe one of the best. Like it's kind of crazy. Yeah, whatever. If they say so.
That's weird. One thing I will say about Abbott, glad to see it back here, but also like a surprise for me is the fact that Quinta Brunson was the only actor, I believe, nominated from the show.
Mm,
Shirley
that's true.
Ralph, Tyler James Williams, they did not get nominated, even though I know that they were nominated last year. Janelle
Hmm.
James, like that was largely a cast that had a lot of nominations, you know, in the previous award season. But maybe due to the fact of the strike, you know, it hasn't been on TV in a while, you know, really since the end of season two last spring. That might have had an effect. But Quentin Brunson was kind of the only person from the show in an acting context that was nominated. But also other actors. I mean, you know, you look at best male actor for a drama. We talked about this with the
Hmm.
Emmys. You know, you got three heavy hitters coming from Succession alone in that category: Brian Cox, Jeremy Strong, and Kira Culkin, all nominated for their work in the final season of Succession.
Pick one.
It's anybody's game. It's like, okay, well, you know, I
Just
mean,
pick one.
I'm not mad. I'm sure it's going to be one of them. I would be surprised. Like, I love Dominic West in The Crown. Also, shout out to The Wire. That's McNulty. But he does great work in The Crown. And also Pedro Pascal. You know, his face is first and foremost, you know, in The Last of Us. So that makes sense as well. But you know, I
Hmm.
think it's definitely going to be one of those three. And similar to what I predicted with the Emmys, I think it's probably going to be Kieran Culkin. Just because of how much work he had to do with season four, like how much we saw out of the Kendall character come out of that season. So it definitely looking forward to that category in particular. Also do want to shout out in the best actress category, Io Adebri for The Bear, nominated best performance
Yeah.
by a female actor. That's also lovely
Yeah.
to see. She's really the glue of that show, I would say. She holds things together, and I'm really amazed by just like how many places she's gone over this past year, how many roles we've seen her in, how much work she's doing, theater camp, bottoms, like she's everywhere now. So it's really great to
She's
see her
everywhere.
working. So I
Hmm.
love that for her. Any predictions for the big categories? Like, let's start with best musical or comedy series. We have Abbott, Barry, The Bear, Jury Duty, Only Murders in the Building, Ted Lasso. Like, if you had to just like do an early prediction for who you think might win, who will walk away with it?
Ooh, that's a hard one. I'm I like to send off shows, or I like when people send off shows with awards. So I'm inclined to Barry or Only Murders in the Building. I'm inclined to one of those two shows to win it, knowing that the Bear will continue, knowing that Abbott kind of we get it, Abbott kind of has its flowers. At least that's how I'm thinking about it. I'm sure the HFPA probably don't think about it like that at all. But I would love, particularly for me, if Barry or Only Murders got it. I think those are two really good shows. They're about to go off the air. I think the other shows will, again, either we've already acknowledged or will return. So I'm going with one of those two. Hopefully Barry though.
Yeah, you really can't go wrong in any of these picks. I'm gonna pick the Bear though. I think the Bear is
Hmm. It's my favorite. I think out of
yeah.
the category.
Yeah. And I think season
But
2
yeah,
is better than season 1 even.
I
I think
agree.
they stepped
And
it
they
up
went
for
to
sure.
different places. Yeah, they went to different places in the Bears season too. So again, I absolutely agree. The Bears my favorite to win, or at least like that's the one I would like. Be like, yeah, that's my out of all of these shows, that's the one I like to watch the most. But if one of the other ones win, I wouldn't be too mad.
Yeah, yeah, no, it's definitely it's a great category for sure. And best drama series 1923, The Crown, The Diplomat, The Last of Us, The Morning Show, Succession. We don't got to talk about this. Like we know who's going
We
to
don't
win.
even
This
have to
is
talk about it.
it's
You know how we
Succession.
feel.
Yeah, Succession's going to win. What's interesting here though is that, because of the strike, the Emmys got pushed back. So the Emmys are going to air the very next week after the Golden Globes. Like we're going to
It's
get
crazy.
back-to-back
Which is like
huge
the Super
television
Bowl.
shows. God damn it. That's going to be a really, really busy time. So it's a lot going on. But I think we're going to see Succession just like have its final moment, its final swan song in the next like few weeks between the Golden Globes, the Emmys, and then of course the SAG Awards. It's going to just get so
Wow.
much respect and adoration amongst those award
Release
bodies. And
that physical, HBO. Release that physical, man.
a complete series box set in 4K, I would
Please.
hope. Like we kind of need that. We've waited. Like why not? We see how
It's time.
how
Hmm.
important physical media is. Let's talk about the movie categories. I really do want to spend a little bit of time here. First and foremost, before
Yeah.
we talk
Let's
about
talk
the
about
main
it.
stuff,
Hmm.
so there are two new categories this year.
Yes.
There's best performance by like live stand-up comedian, whatever. I didn't even look at those nominees because I'm not interested. But they also added a new category, cinematic and box office achievement in motion pictures, which I suppose is to acknowledge the really popular films that came out last year, the movies that at the box office made a lot of money. The parameters essentially were that a movie had to make in excess of $150 million at the box office, and at least
Hmm.
$100 million of that 150 had to come from the domestic box office. Okay, so essentially we're talking about 100 million plus big box office tentpole successes. But what's the award for exactly? Because when you look at the nominees here, we don't even have all of the highest grossing films that came out last year. So I'll just read the nominees. We have Barbie, Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, John Wick Chapter 4, Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning Part 1, Oppenheimer, Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse, Super Mario Brothers movie, Taylor Swift, The Eras Tour. Now, when you look at Barbie, Guardians, Mission, Across the Spider-Verse, Oppenheimer, Super Mario Brothers movie, those are all like in the top 10 highest grossing movies. But
Hmm.
Fast X was one of the highest grossing movies of last year. The Little Mermaid, one of the highest grossing movies of last year. They're not acknowledged or recognized here. So I'm just kind of confused at what this award is. Like what exactly, like how can we exclude those other big box office successes? And by the way, I want to be clear. I'm not advocating for Fast X. I'm just saying if we're talking about
Hmm.
box office achievements, it made some of the most money from last year, but it's not included here. So I just don't get it. I don't really understand the award. Do you have any thoughts about the inclusion of this? I know the Oscars tried this like 5 years ago, and it was much maligned across the internet. People were not having this, and they quickly disregarded it. But the HFPA and the Golden Globes, it looks like they're going to pull the trigger on recognizing box office success.
I mean, I don't know, man. Part of me does like the idea of like, look, you could get the most butts in the seats. You know what I mean? I feel like there is something to that. You know what I mean? But to me, the money is almost the reward. You know
Yeah,
what I'm
but I
saying?
mean, how
Like,
does Barbie not just automatically win? It was the highest
and
grossing movie
Barbie,
in the U.S. and worldwide. So like, that's the win. What
exactly. What
what's
are
the
we
trophy
talking
for?
about? What are the other? What's the conversation? I don't know. It's
Is
a
it
throwaway
quality?
category.
Quality
It
play,
it
maybe?
can't. I will say these are like good films. You know what I mean? Like it's not like they're
Yeah,
just some bad box office. It's like no, these are some hitters. So I will say they are good movies, but yeah. I just can't. I can't buy into like how it's not obvious. Like oh, who got the highest number? Barbie did. So that's it. That's the end of the. I don't know. If anything, maybe there should be like a quick part in the show where it's like these films had really cool cinematic and box office achievements this year, and that's it. You know what I mean? Like you don't have to give an award. That's it. Just acknowledge them and keep moving. You don't have to have a whole category for it. So yeah, it's I don't know what we're doing there.
I think it's stupid. Honestly, I just
Yeah,
think it's dumb. I don't see a point for it. Again, I don't even know what the criteria is for winning. I suppose
doesn't
maybe
make any
it's
sense.
quality, but I mean, Barbie's gonna win it. I don't really see any other way around that because it
It's
was
not.
literally the
Yeah,
biggest box office story
if it
of
doesn't, then we're
2023.
actually going to be side eyeing. Like if it doesn't win, you're like, okay, like what are we? What
I'm
are we
just
basing this off of?
I'm gonna just ignore it, just act like it didn't happen because like the
It's gonna be
money's been made. It's
the
so
money's been
silly.
made.
But let's talk about the movie categories like in more detail. As I said, Barbie is leading the field with 9 nominations. Oppenheimer right behind with 8. Killers of the Flower Moon and Poor Things coming in with some big nominations. It's been a really interesting year, and we're starting to see. I think the field kind of take shape with some of these movie categories in terms of what this might mean for the Oscars, especially from a directing perspective. You know, people like Martin Scorsese, Bradley Cooper, Yorgos Lanthimos, who we talked about earlier, being acknowledged here, but also these big tentpole films, Oppenheimer and Barbie, the big breakout successes that are
Hmm.
forever intrinsically linked, you know, from here on out. Obviously, having a lot of conversation around them. Killers of the Flower Moon is looming large. And then there's other films, you know, like a Maestro, which is yet to have its release on Netflix, but definitely getting a lot of chatter around it as well. So, what are your just like your high level thoughts, you know, before we dive into some other specifics? Any surprises, anything that sticks out to you in terms of the movie categories?
Oh man, I have so much, but that might be specifics. You know, say I don't know. I have so much. One of the biggest things I'll say is again after hearing a lot of I think talk uh from the pundits and critics and all of these other things. I feel like there's a lot of snubs in here that we can get into and to talk about. But one of the big ones seems to be The Color Purple. Like that's one of the ones that you're like you have to side eye it a little bit. Again, I watch a lot of cinema YouTube, y'all. Like there'd be critics on there saying like, "Oh man, Color Purple, blah blah blah, this and that." Then it's like, damn, but Air made it. You know what I'm saying? I love Air. I think it's a great movie. But it's like, huh, Air made it over color. I don't know. Again, I still have to see the film. I
That's in the best
understand, but
musical comedy category,
yeah,
right? For the best
it's
movie.
best
Yeah.
musical comedy. Yeah, it's all still in talks and but it's all very interesting. Again, the H what is it HFPA HPFA whatever. This is still very much a new thing for them. So what I will say overall is I think the Golden Globes this year in some ways kind of killed it with nominations than what they have in previous years. Again, I expected to Golden Globes nominations have come out. I expected to hear like they went crazy for Wonka or something like that that a lot of us, you know what I mean? A lot of us the cinema people would have been like okay, but like what about these movies over here? And it feels like the everything feels more diverse this year. I will give them that. And so it's definitely I think a lot to talk about. But to see like Anatomy of a Fall here, Zone of Interest, which I haven't seen yet, but I've heard nothing but amazing things about. Like I'm very proud. I think to see some of these here that I feel like in previous Golden Globes I would definitely wouldn't have seen like Zone of Interest or like Anatomy of a Fall in some of these
International films,
categories.
like more
International
international.
films
Yeah.
have made it. And I'll talk about this more, but shout out to Past Lives. Past Lives 8 the Golden Globes nominations this year. I really love that movie. I can't wait to get into it more. But yeah, I'm just very proud, I think, overall of the nominees in general and what the Golden Globes were able to produce with some of the nominations this year. It's kind of impressive.
Yeah, it's you know, it's more balanced. It's not great, but I do think it's a little bit of a better balance than what we would traditionally see because the Golden Globes will acknowledge films that just quite honestly will not have any recognition probably at the Oscars, you know, like your
Mm-hmm.
Airs or your Wonkas or stuff like that, where it's like
Mm-hmm.
this is kind of where the buck stops for you. Like you'll have a moment here, Dream Scenario. Like I like that movie a lot, but it's not going to get
Yeah.
Oscar recognition. It's just not.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so I think it's good for that. It's good to have like those moments in award season for those types of films that are a little bit more commercially appealing, but don't
Mm-hmm.
quite fit the I guess the niche of the Academy with the Oscar ceremony. But at the same time, there still has to be some element of prestige and some acknowledgement of just the talent that exists out there that we're seeing from all over the world, you know, with the movie
Right.
like Anatomy of the Fall or what Celine Song did with Past Lives and Zone of
Yep.
Interest. Like these movies coming in here in a big way, it's great. You know, one of the biggest surprises I think is Celine Song getting nominated for Best Director for Past Lives. Like
She ate.
that was
Mm-hmm.
a shocker, but a great one at that. I love the fact that she's able to do that as a first time filmmaker at that. Just such an incredible, extraordinary movie, and to see her
Also,
get
like
acknowledged.
is it was so surprised. Doesn't the movie have to be like over 50% English? Like in watching Past Life, did it meet that threshold? That's one of the
I
things that
think so.
surprised me about the nomination. Was like, did it hit
I
the
th-
50%
I think so. I don't know
that
if
it was supposed to
I don't
be?
know if that's an actual guideline with the
Hmm.
HFPA. I'm not sure, but if it is, I would say it does.
You
There's a
think
lot
it
of English.
did? Okay.
Yeah. I just rewatched it recently. It's still a lot of English dialogue in it, so I think it would surpass that. But despite that, though, it's really really cool to see that. I do want to call out a couple of other like quick surprises did not see coming. Saltburn getting acknowledged here. I
Ooh,
did not
the
foresee that.
Roseman Pike.
Rosamund Pike,
Hmm.
Barry Keoghan, both
Barry
getting
Keoghan. Yeah.
getting acknowledged for their performances there. The best performances of that movie. So if you had to pick the two, that makes sense. Also Jennifer Lawrence making it in here for No Hard Feelings,
That was
which
surprising.
I think they think Netflix can be thanked for that. I don't know if the Netflix boom
Yeah.
of that movie, if that didn't exist, I don't know if this would be the case, but because it's become such a hit on Netflix after its theatrical rollout, because it didn't do that great in theaters. I think that that's like a big
Yeah.
thing
It
that they
felt
can thank.
Golden Globey. That kind of felt Golden Globey. That nomination
I
felt
don't
a
even
little
know if it
Golden
feels Golden
Globey.
Globey. I think I think it's a complete outlier if I'm being honest, because
Hmm.
it's like a completely like it's a just a pure hard R comedy, and I don't know how often they really acknowledge that. It's one of
That's
those.
true.
It's not even artsy. It doesn't have that artsy bent
Yeah.
to it, you know. So
Hmm.
it was a bit of a surprise to me. Nicolas Cage also getting acknowledged for Dream Scenario. I didn't see that coming, but nice to see him getting something here. I think, I don't know if that'll happen at more award shows, but good for him. I really liked his performance. I think it was pretty amazing. Emma Stone, as I mentioned earlier, she got two nominations in two mediums, TV and movies. She got nominated for
A
Poor Things
beast.
and The Curse. So
A
again,
beast.
just she can do whatever she wants. And the last one I just want to call out quickly, Joaquin Phoenix, he was nominated for Beau is Afraid, but not Napoleon, which I wouldn't have predicted that. I do think he's better in Beau is Afraid,
I'm
but
happy they
like,
watched that movie. Yes.
yeah, Napoleon feels like the more awards play. That's Ridley
Hmm.
Scott. That's a
The
celebrated
Ridley. Yep.
filmmaker. It's a historical
Uh-huh.
epic. It's somebody everybody knows, Napoleon. But no. Beau is Afraid is the one that
I
got
think
the
they did good
acknowledgement.
there.
So yeah, no,
Yeah.
I like that pick. Again, I don't see Beau is Afraid going anywhere else after this, but
Hmm.
it's good to have him fit into this conversation about performances and what happened throughout the year. And maybe that'll motivate some people to possibly go see the movie if they have not checked it out as well. I want to talk about best director
Yeah.
here. Now, for my money, when we do Oscars predictions, I think Chris Nolan, that man's winning. But here at the Golden Globes, things may shake up that conversation. It could go in a different direction. And it could throw off some predictions. But we have Bradley Cooper for Maestro, Greta Gerwig for Barbie, Yorgos Lanthimos for Poor Things, Kristen Nolan for Oppenheimer, Scorsese for Killers of the Flower Moon, and Celine Song for Past Lives.
A
It's stacked.
category.
It's stacked. It's crazy. You got
A
women, you got
category.
men, you got all sorts of stuff, different ages, young filmmakers, old filmmakers, legends, icons, big budget, small indie film. Like it's kind of all here. It's a really strong category. How do you feel about this and how it all shaped out?
Uh wow. What again, this is a hard one, man. What a category. Again, like you said, it feels like the Chris Nolan of it all, at least Academy Award wise, feels like very Oppenheimerish, but to low key, Greta Gerwig feels Golden Globey to me. It feels like, oh yeah, Greta Gerwig wins for Barbie. I don't know. It worked. That narrative makes sense for me. But to be honest, I'm just proud of this lineup in general. These are literally some of my favorite directors and some of my favorite movies. Like, you know what I mean? Like of the year. So it's a stat category for sure. And I'm interested to see what's going to happen. But it's hard for me to not put Barbenheimer at the forefront of all of it all. It really is. It's going to take some convincing for me to see otherwise. But again, I think this category is stacked, and we'll have to see what the Golden Globes go with.
Yeah, it's man. I again, I think when the Oscars rolls around, despite what happens at the Globes, I think Barbie's probably going to be on the losing end of a lot, not
Hmm.
to any fault of its own, but just due to the fact that like I mean, Oppenheimer is Oppenheimer, and I think that
Oppenheimer is
that
crazy.
movie that movie I think speaks to the appeal of what the Academy is looking for at that moment. So maybe
Hmm.
perhaps Golden Globes we can see some potential shocks. I mean, Barbie also has just so many nominations. Like we're talking about performances, music, and other things like that. So it has a lot of opportunities to do different things and really shine. But yeah, this is a good one. I'm picking. I'm picking Chris Nolan here just
Hmm.
because, even though I don't, whether he wins or loses this specific award, I don't think it means anything for the Oscars race. I
Right.
don't, I don't see those two things correlating at all. Like if Greta were to win, I don't think that the pendulum swings in her direction per se.
Exactly. Hmm.
But if she wins, then this could be a good moment for her. Before we move on to the next category, I do want to also just like call out the fact that in supporting female actress in a motion picture, we got two black women being acknowledged. Danielle Brooks for The Color Purple and Divine Joy Randolph for The Holdovers, which haven't seen The Color Purple yet. We will get to that, but The Holdovers, I can speak to Divine Joy Randolph, and I talked about it when I talked about the movie. Fantastic. Love what she's doing. Love what she did in The Idol. I love the trajectory she's on as well. She's great.
Hmm.
So I'm really really glad to see her here. Especially against others like Emily Blunt and Jodie Foster, Julianne Moore, like really really talented performers, but great to see them here as well. Even though, to your point earlier, Color Purple not getting that recognition in the best, picture category for musical or comedy, we're seeing Danielle Brooks get acknowledged. We're seeing Fantasia
Hmm.
also get acknowledged. So those were some other wins that I was like, okay, well, at least we're seeing some performances actually stand out as opposed to, I think in previous years, a lot of these actresses or actors wouldn't even be acknowledged in that way.
I'm hearing some like Danielle Brooks is it. Like I'm hearing like Academy Award, like give it to her right now, kind of type stuff from her. So that's really cool. I haven't seen the holdovers yet. I'm actually watching it later this week. Do you think I've been hearing some other stuff too about the holdovers that some people are not necessarily never thought it was gonna like win Best Picture or anything, but some people did think it got a little bit snubbed from some of these categories for the holdovers. As someone who's seen it, what do you think about the holdovers here?
Yeah, so I do think I think a snub is there for sure. Like I'm feeling that the whole it's in this weird place. Like I think that there's like a strong 15 movies. Like when we get to the Academy Awards, there's like a strong 15 movies that can end up in that top 10 that they
Hmm.
ultimately pick. Holdovers is one of those movies. But if it ends up like right on the outskirts as like number 11 or 12, I wouldn't be all that surprised. But my natural inclination is to say that it's going to end up in that conversation.
Hmm.
Here, I don't know really what happened. Maybe it is just due to the fact that like it is a comedy, so it would have gone in the comedy category. I would have put it over Air, and as you said, I love Air also. But
Yeah, that's
comedy
just like
comedy
yeah.
is stacked here in this year for the Golden Globes, and they split amongst their genres, and you look at the rest of it: American Fiction, Barbie, May December, Poor Things. Like
Hmm.
those are some big movies, and so I think ultimately it'll fit into that conversation for Best Picture. But I would have liked to see more, as well. I'm
Yeah.
I'm I'm, I'm kind of surprised Alexander Payne wasn't acknowledged for Best Director, in that category because he did a great
Hmm.
job in that movie, and he's won a lot of Golden Globes in the past. Like he's actually like he's like Jim Carrey for directors at the Golden Globes. Like
I didn't know that.
Jim Carrey doesn't really win Oscars. He's won Golden Globes.
He won Golden Globes. Yeah.
But and Alexander Payne like is kind of in that same he's kind of in that same conversation. He's won a few. He's been nominated a lot. So it was a bit of a shocker to not see him get acknowledged here. So yeah, Holdovers is one of those more interesting narratives I think that we'll have to see develop over the next few months as well. We should talk about the best picture category for drama, the big one. Here we have some really really phenomenal films included: Anatomy of a Fall, Killers of the Flower Moon, Maestro, Oppenheimer, Past Lives, and The Zone of Interest. And you pair that with the best picture musical or comedy category which has Air, American Fiction, Barbie, The Holdovers, May December, and Poor Things. I mean, we're seeing those 10 kind of take shape, for what the
Hmm.
Academy Awards might ultimately include here. Drama has, or actually both categories have six apiece, which is a pivot. I don't think they've done six inclusions in categories before. I think it used to be five, but
Hmm.
they probably
Hmm.
expanded the field. So we have 12 films here. Only 10 can make the Academy when that time rolls around. But yeah, what are your thoughts just about Best Picture drama, what that category includes, where things might go?
Yeah, Best Picture Drama again. Stack. I'm to be again. I know it's not gonna win. I'm just happy to see Past Lives, bro. You know, I like really liked that movie, and so to see it here just makes me happy. I'm glad again. Some of these international films are getting in here. Anatomy of a Fall and Zone of Interest. I still have to see. I'm hearing again some crazy stuff about the Zone of Interest. Like it might end up being like my favorite. Like a lot of people's like, oh, I seen Zone of Interest. That's now my new favorite film of the year. So I can't wait to see Zone of Interest. But Oppenheimer, bro, it's a masterpiece. I'm sorry. Like he did something. That boy Chris Nolan did something with Oppenheimer. And so for me personally, that's absolutely my favorite. And again, I think for me, it's pretty shoe in to win here. I think with the other nominees. I think again specifically with drama. If it was against some of that other stuff and musical comedy, maybe we might be thinking slightly different. But I think it might be a shoe in here for me for best picture in drama category.
Yeah, I mean, this probably is going to be outside of the opening weekend box office. This will probably be the only time we can see Barbie and Oppenheimer win on the same night because Barbie could win best musical or
Mm-hmm.
comedy, and then Oppenheimer
Yeah.
can win best drama. Everybody
Mm-hmm.
wins. That's the
Everybody
story that I
wins.
think everybody walks away with. That's my prediction. I think that's how it's all going to shake
I
out.
think so too.
It
Mhm.
just it kind of writes itself. There can only be one though at the Academy Awards. Amongst again the rest of this field, and I don't know. I don't know the 10 that makes it, but I think we got some real heavy hitting films here, and I love what this does for past lives to bring it back to the forefront. Because that movie came out like in the middle of 2023, and it could have easily been lost in the discourse, but it's managed to stay around, and I love that for it. That even though it had like a May or June release, here we are, at the end of the year going into next year talking about it, and so that's great to see. And all these other films as well. Anatomy of a Fall. Oh my God. Yeah, that deserves to be in there. Zone of Interest. I'm also hearing some great things as well. And May December, in which I just talked about, you
Mhm.
know, I'm I'm interested to see if that can go all the way to the Oscars as well. Cause like I don't know if I would be
It'll
surprised
be
either
hard to
way.
think.
Yeah, I don't know if
I
I'll
think
be
it'll be hard
surprised either
for it.
way. If it
Mhm.
stops here, I wouldn't be shocked, but I think it could continue to go further and further. Just again
This is
based on
so
that
stacked.
discourse. Yeah, it's kind of crazy. But
This
that's
year
kind
is
of the
stacked.
that's kind of the benefit of like what they have with all these different categories and genres. I'm not a fan of it. I don't like the splits, but you do get the chance to acknowledge more
Mhm.
films that way. I don't know if American Fiction
Yeah.
is going to have a huge rollout and a
Mhm.
huge conversation around Oscars time. So again, it has its place. It exists. It'll be interesting to see when this all breaks out. But before we wrap up, any other like closing thoughts? Any final thoughts on the Golden Globes before we move on?
Oh yeah. I'm hearing maybe Zac Efron snub from Iron
Oh, interesting.
Claw.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I'm hearing Taraji P. Henson potential snub. I heard she might be a small snub here. A big one for me personally, y'all. We didn't talk about best motion picture animated, but real quick, Boy in the Heron, Elemental, Spider Man, Mario, Suzume, and Wish. What movie is not on there? Fucking Ninja Turtles is not on there. You telling me Wish beat Ninja? I'm sorry. That's what are we doing? What are we doing? I don't. Goodbye. What I don't. I can't. You go watch Wish and Ninja Turtles back to back right now. I guarantee you, it doesn't make any sense. I don't
That's
know
a
what we're
bad
doing in that
fumble.
category.
They should have.
That's really
They
bad.
should have. If you're gonna have a Disney movie, you should have. Well, no, they do have Elemental. That is there. Okay. Well, they
Elemental's
really,
there.
they really didn't need that extra spot for Wish because
They
no.
didn't need it.
Yeah,
Let
that's
Elemental, you're at least you're close to box office. You know what I mean? Success. Be your mouthpiece, and give it to Ninja Turtles, man. Ninja Turtles is a good movie. Like it may not win, you know what I'm saying? But Wish, come on, bro. We can do better. They could do better than that. Someone's like they didn't. I maybe they didn't watch it. Maybe that's it.
That's very possible. That's very possible. That is a tough beat though, because yeah, Ninja Turtles is like unequivocally the better
Yeah.
movie by miles and
Mhm.
miles, and so that should have been there as well. So yeah, I will say too, nothing for Wes Anderson went pretty much like no acknowledgments for Asteroid City, which is a bit of a surprise. I don't know if I would have thought something. I would have thought he would have been acknowledged for something
Yeah.
here. It would have been like more of the musical comedy categories, but I don't know. Maybe because that is such a huge ensemble, it becomes a bit tricky to try to nail down
That's
specific
a hard one.
performances. Even though
Yeah.
there's clear there's
Maybe
there's clear leads in that movie. Like Scarlett
mhm,
Johansson is a lead of that movie. So
you're right.
I don't know what happened there, and I don't know if this is going to detract and take away from any type of Oscar consideration. Like if this might kind of just signal that that's not going to really have a moment. But I was a little shocked by that. No Wes Anderson presence here.
I think they'll talk about the technical at the Oscars. Golden Globes is not really technical
Yeah, they
like
don't get into
that.
that
So
here really.
maybe I think maybe they'll talk about it around that time. Like it might get like a production design here and there, or like even a cinematography, something. You know what I mean? But yeah, it is what it is, I guess. I agree. I was like, oh shoot, no Wes Anderson either, but
Yeah.
maybe people wasn't digging it like that.
Well, at least they'll probably get Taylor Swift at the show because she's nominated. So I guess you win where you can. You figure it all out. Well, we'll see. The Golden Globes airs January 7th. We'll check that out. We'll be back to talk about all the big winners.